disrespectful ritual. They use an event, they play the church, literally, took the whole thing for a joke. And opposed to going with it, say this moment, you know what, how about we actually celebrate the life of this person? Let's be in the moment, let's be present, let's be reverent. Maybe let's offer even a prayer, for whatever it is that you believe. And let's walk out of here saying we were able to successfully do an event that normally wouldn't happen in a place like that, right?
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, now they are demanding an apology because they didn't get the actual mass that they requested and they went in for. They just got the funeral, so they feel that. And the person who's behind this criticism is somebody that says, and because the Pope already approved same-sex marriage, you don't know what you are talking about, and you are also promoting things that will confuse people even more. There is no such a thing as same-sex marriage approved by the Catholic Church. That's not happening. I'm not saying that it won't happen ever, but I don't see it happening in my lifetime, to be quite honest with you. Don't do old people joke right now to say that it might be happening shortly. No. What I'm saying is, this just triggers a lot of confusion, and it doesn't help the community. It doesn't help the cause, because to be quite honest with you, that kind of behavior, the only thing that it does is it makes me feel anti even more, right? Because all I'm thinking is the amount of people that are willing to cross the line, they say the profanities that are actually say in all those things. What's your take on this thing, guys? What do you see?
You wanna go?
No, go ahead.
No.
Okay,
Please.
so I got a couple.
Yeah.
So number one, so here, I think the biggest problem with all of this is more people are going to get confused, like you said, as far as what is the Catholic Church's position and what is something that's not their position, but may look like it is, right? So I'm not 100% sure on who I believe as far as who knew what. Why? Because it doesn't take long to find out who somebody is, right? So this person is not a nobody. Do you get what I'm saying? So if they even knew the name of the person, right, you can find out all you needed to know about the person.
I agree with
right? So it's hard for me to say that they didn't know, right? Now, if it would have been someone who was trans who was not an activist, then I would say definitely there was no agenda to be crazy on purpose. But because I know that it's no, this is probably, they was trying to make a message or trying to prove a point that, hey, we're going to do this regardless of what anybody thinks. So I think, number one, they were acting a certain way in the church on purpose. I think if the church didn't know who this person was, then that's a big flaw, and or a big leak in their system.
This is going to trigger changes, you know what I mean? Because now you're going to have to know a little more.
But then the last thing I'll say is this, is that as I was reading up on it, just how it's being presented as I'm reading it is causing more confusion, because they saying, number one, that I think her name was Cecilia. She is a Catholic. Whether she was or wasn't, that's what it's saying. Then here's the thing. Last part that I want to say is this. It said that she was the first person honored in the cathedral's history that was trans. So then when I read that if she was honored by the cathedral as a trans, that sounds like a good thing. If I was honored, versus if they actually had a problem, this should have happened. They was supposed to have a mass. They cut it to change it to. So you get what I'm saying? So then now I have a different perspective just from reading up on it for what they actually do or don't believe in, as far as, you get what I'm saying?
So the position of the cardinal, just so that you know, and this makes it an official position of the actual archdiocese, right? The moment that the cardinal says, we were mostly deceived about what happened here, which they still have to admit the fact that they knew certain things about it, but not to the extent of what it was. It doesn't, will never get elevated to somebody who was honor. Honor is, I am willing
but that's what I'm
I'm
reading.
going to recognize you, and I'm going to, in addition to that, it is him himself who confirms that this individual is not a Catholic. Because I also don't want to go through the sheet that I don't know at this point. At this point, I'm just not willing to play that game. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with anybody that, because I'm even more offended that there is no limit to listen, again, fight for your cause, but be respectful of what other people believe. This will have never even come close to happening prior to Vatican II. I know we had a couple of conversations about this, that old traditional side of the church there will be no even confusion whatsoever about what it is that we believe. How do we go about it?
Yeah.
What can be? But there is also acts of charity and mercy. And just so that you know, they actually have the right to stop the whole thing, even if it would have turned into
A riot,
we're
yeah.
gonna set the place on fire,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like they could have gotten to that point,
So can I
but
ask a couple questions?
they still decided to
Go
go
through with the-
ahead
yeah, I get you.
with the funeral service as a way of the church saying we're still gonna show acts of charitable mercy, so that you can see that yes, God, wishes to be kind to everyone. But at the end of the day, I think that there's a misleading concept with the kindness of God.
No, absolutely.
There is also the judgment of God. Like you gotta remember that it's not just
I get you. Yeah.
we talk a lot about how we want to go to heaven. We also need to talk a little bit about how we need to avoid going to hell, whatever that looks like.
So I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Number one, who presided over the ceremony? Was it a cardinal?
No,
Or
no,
it was just a priest?
regular priest. one
Okay.
person.
Now, who decides what is gonna happen at that church? Like, does it go through like what's the procedure? Is there it?
No,
if
go
there's
go
one?
through the sacristy of the church and say, hey, I have a family member that passed away, and we would like to see if it's possible to do.
And are there any questions or anything that comes back?
Name of the person, when was this person born, where was the person, what I mean? Usually, one of the questions should be, as to whether or not the person was baptized in that location or not. That would have been a giveaway. You have to know a little bit of that information. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like, why are you choosing this church? The same way that you had people that will marry in
Well,
this
they were born
beautiful-
in Argentina.
Correct. So people will assume immediately
Right.
the person is right, and so because of that reason. But it's almost like the person that would choose, I want to marry in that church just because it's a beautiful church. That still is not enough of a reason.
Right.
You got to go through a significant protocol to be able to say that's your local church. Why do you want to marry
So
here?
would they
so
have-
there was a lot of things that either somebody didn't do due diligence or someone literally lied in the application process for this to take place. Once it clears, is they go through the rotation of whichever priest is going to be available. They wanted this priest, James Martin, to be there, but this guy knew how controversial this thing was going to be. He's not an idiot. He's already into a lot of controversy, and he turned it down, said to them that he would love to be there, but I had a previous commitment.
Oh, that's the guy that's pro.
This James
like
Martin,
that he's
who is
driving the whole process. Okay.
So this
Do
guy
you
would
think
have
that was
been
part
there.
of the game, though?
Part of it, probably.
Because it's not our guy; it was somebody else.
Probably, and then you put this older priest, what I mean, he absolutely starts that. Wow, this, we
Right,
we
yeah.
don't even get this many people in a regular
Easter
Sunday.
Sunday, yeah.
He's absolutely happy to see this many people. Doesn't know the whole thing is about to turn into chaos, right?
Yeah.
Again, it tells you there was a little bit of an innocence, and when he's approached by somebody who is obviously one of the people serving him, in almost imagine. A deacon, because sometimes you can have priests that are visiting priests, but whoever is going to be serving you is somebody who is from the parish, so that they can keep you running within where things happen to be, things are supposed to happen. You can hear that one person that absolutely have to say, hey, this cannot be a mass. This is not a good idea for this to be a mass. It has to become a funeral.
Right.
And he said, okay.
Because there's a couple of things that come to my attention. The first one is the standards. Standards have been compromised. I mean, I remember you had an interview with a nun.
Correct.
And you mentioned that people here in Florida, they're showing up to church in bathing suit.
Correct.
I grew up Catholic. I went to a Catholic school.
Correct.
There was no way that you're walking. Like, I take off a hat whenever you're in the church, like even to eat. By the way, so it's like those things are traditions that somehow are being staying away. However, like that, I'm sure was what triggered the reaction of this is not going to be a mass. This is going to be just a funeral.
Once they realized that the way everybody was behaving and reacting was way over the top, and once you look around and you see the people, the way everybody was dressed, the way people are, you know, there was a little section
Yeah.
that looked more like a drag queen type
Yeah.
of show about to take place.
Yeah.
So now you don't know what to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you're,
correct,
you're,
correct.
and you're still in the heart of hearts. You know what I mean? Especially for people that are serving in the church. Listen, for us, sometimes this doesn't mean anything. I will share with you in a very personal way that there is a Catholic church here, Holy Cross, and I allow myself to. When I first moved from New York to the state of Florida, they didn't have enough altar servers. So I train a group of people to become altar servers in that church, but more than anything else, not just the children, actual grown-ups, because one of the biggest issues was they didn't have somebody to help the priest during a funeral, because you don't want to have children helping a priest in a
Right,
funeral. You know what I
right,
mean? You're-
yeah.
So I will get a phone call. Hey, Marvin, somebody passed away. Are you able to? Like, I can't even tell you how many times I left the office, you know, suit up, and I was helping the. It's supposed to be one of the most reverent moments. First of all, somebody just passed away. You coming to present. So somebody, you know what I mean, just passed away. You coming to present the body. The family is there. You know what I mean? Like you had people that are going through actual pain, and they want. So when you see in a funeral ritual, it's almost like the highest level of reverence that you can extend to it, because again, what you're hoping for is that God will have mercy on what just happened with that person.
Gotcha.
So again, I will go out there and to help train. Like if you go to Holy Cross right now, there's a thing, again, when I said use the term rotation, the whole idea was to make sure that there was enough people. So if somebody got a call and said I can't do
were
it
able
right
to
now,
assist.
there was always somebody
Right,
ready to
on
go
cue,
in there.
yeah.
So that's the way it was
Yeah.
even for the priest, right?
Yes.
Like it's a funeral went into the calendar. Who's available in the rotational priest to be able to participate on that? And this poor man is the one who
You
actually
got bamboozled.
got
'Cause-
stuck in there.
Because when you look at the actual individual, right, you're looking at somebody, and you mentioned that even if you just killed somebody, you
Yeah.
can go to a priest and do confession,
Yeah, yeah.
and their job is to say, do this, do that, you've been forgiven, right? That's
Yeah,
what happens.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the actual funeral service, there's nothing wrong with it. It's the way that it was. So here's a couple of things that pop into my mind. The first one, actually, how many bamboozles like this have happened before?
Probably a few, but nobody knows about. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't as public as.
Yeah.
First of all,
And I'm talking about in history. I'm not just talking about like recent. I'm talking
almost
about
not
like,
not one that I can personally cite. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Not one that I can tell you that. But I do want to tell you something because when you framing the question from that perspective, I do want you to know that I don't know that in a place like that, if there would have been a full disclosure that the person that was they were going to do the
that
event
they would have
was
accepted.
officially trans, and it was and so because the responsibility of the church is to pray for the name that was given to the person, because once you are there's two sequence of documents that are extremely important within the Catholic Church. One of them, you obviously have your date of birth. That's your legal document on a secular environment. But within the religious is your
Baptized.
baptism,
Yeah.
form, your document. Whatever the name on that document is,
Yes.
that's the name that has to be quoted at the time of the actual funeral ritual.
Even if you're married.
Whatever the case may be, even
Okay.
so that is the name. You can add it, you know what I mean, part of the family, part of this. If I had a legal changed name because I moved to another place, another country, they still have to start no matter what with, whatever that name was. So whatever his name, if it was, let's say that he was a Catholic. So that would be even a greater reason to say, okay, this is the baptismal name. But now because of so and so, and again, the church at that point would have
Gets to the
crazy enough. We are in a situation where there's so much confusion that everybody asks me, "Do you think that they would have gone forward?" I said, years ago it would have been an easy no. Don't
Today,
now
possibly.
it's like
Maybe.
possible.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a maybe in that alone. So I don't want to go so hard into the idea that because he was trans and he was. But under normal circumstances, especially in a place like that place, it's not something that will normally happen.
Got it.
You know what I
Okay.
mean?
So, because honestly, I think community is getting exactly what they wanted. In no way, shape, or form do I agree, and that's why I was very defensive at the beginning, just because it is extremely, like, for me, I grew up Catholic, and I don't, if you know me and my conflict with the church, it's like I don't want to be a part of it because I know that I don't belong, you know, and I don't want to force the hand on there. Just don't force your hand on me.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So it's like the fact that this is happening, and everybody, the moment AOC started saying something in the Senate floor, whatever it is that that she was, with her little ash, because it was on Ash Wednesday that she's talking about this, which is insane. The moment she gets involved, I know it's a shit show. Number one. Number two, everybody is like taking a victimization towards the whole process. Like everybody's like, oh, they need to apologize to us, when I mean there was some seriously obscene words, behaviors.
Esta puta, esta gran puta.
This whore. This great whore. Saint Cecilia, mother of all whores.
We humbly implore you for your servant Cecilia.
Mother of all whores.
And things that ended up happening.
But also the misleading statement that the Pope has agreed to bless, gay marriages. That the church is. Guys, there are certain things that even the Pope himself is not able to do, as much as he actually is the ruling head of the church. He's not able to do certain things because it goes back to the tradition and what is called the magisterium, meaning these things were already given. They cannot be changed, you know what I mean, in any way, shape, or form. So, but the fact that it introduces additional confusion, as you stated before, that's already a significant problem. The fact that this comes back with a vengeance, Lorena, because I'm going to tell you, right now, the growing movement within the Catholic Church is the traditional movement. The growing financing of, I can show you the churches that are being built right now through the traditional movements, and you're going to go like, wow, that's an impressive, you know, that there's a lot of people right now that want to support that side of it. And it's going to come back with a vengeance, to the point that you're talking about rules that are going to... I mean, we're having this conversation about immigration, right? It got so crazy that at some point you're going to have no choice but to say, nobody comes in, right? And so it's kind of like the same... We're heading in that same direction. So when these people pull this type of pranks, they think, oh, we're just going to move the needle a little forward. What you're going to do is you're going to create... Because I didn't consider myself anti-anything. Right now... I'm borderline able to say I'm anti-trans movement, just because I feel like I'm left with no choice but to take a position, just because they cross a line that I never expected to see something like that. So you want to play games? Guess what? Instead of having a friend, or at least somebody that was willing to listen.
An ally.
Exactly. But listen.
By the way, that language is used in the community.
Guys, just so that you know, sometimes you're not going to have a friend. But what you want to make sure is that you don't have an enemy. You know what I mean? And I had been there in positions, regardless of my upbringing with the church and all those things, I have taken a position of saying, I'm going to do everything in my power to be fair and to be, you know what I mean? I'm not going to, but things like this, okay, so I'm going to have to take a position. You know what I mean? And I hate it, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
You had something else you wanted to say?
Last thing I was going to say about it, and Patrick Bet-David was talking about this on one of the podcasts he was doing, and he was saying how pretty much the movement is operating like a religion, and they are recruiting people into their idea that this is what and then here's the thing, just like most religions, not everybody within the religion believes the same thing. So then now you run into an issue where if I have a belief because I say I'm a part of this religion, but it's different from most of the people within the religion itself, now things just become more confusing. So
here's what I will wrap up with, and I want everybody to know. By the way, if you are like me, that you are gay, lesbian, or bisexual, even transgender, and you do not agree with what is happening, you have to say something. Because let me tell you something. I understand what you're saying and where you are being driven to. But that's not 80%. The 80% of our community, we just want to be left in peace. I just want to be able to hang out with my wife and not get like freaking shot at and like stuff like that, which has happened, you know, not to us, but like, but we have been in positions where you do not feel safe because of your sexual orientation. So we've been there. I'm so freaking grateful that we have moved so far ahead that I don't have to worry about it anymore. However, there's this fringe 5, maybe 10% of the community that is the loudest part of the community, unfortunately, that are doing these stupid acts, and then somewhere, somehow, all of us are being represented, and we're being splashed with all the stupidity. At the end of the day, and I've said it in every podcast every time, is we're going to end up with the consequence of things rolling way back just because of some freaking idiot decided to make a show at something in the middle of a church. We have no business being there. Nobody wants to be there, to be honest. Just let live and let live.
What I will tell you, and I'm going to tell you this from even my own personal limitations within the church. I am a married person. I cannot be a priest. So that's already a set of limitations that I understand. But there is also an incredible amount of benefits that come to me by my proximity with the church. You know what I mean? I find peace. I find guidance. I find a moral structure that has, whenever I fell, you know what I mean? It brings me back to the idea that, hey, you can find a better way of doing things. The statement that you made right now, like I'm going to invite you to see it from that perspective. There is a set of limitations within the church. It's not that you don't belong to the church or the church doesn't belong to it. It's just as long as you understand your set of limitations, it would be very difficult for that traditional church, especially because you grew up in a different environment, right? That church was more traditional. That church was more specific about certain things. But as long as you understand that it becomes a little difficult to be honest about your position and to try to play a leadership role within the church, right? That brings a conflict, like the whole situation with this James Martin character, who is very much pro movement of these things. The other thing is, you know that you walking around without the blessing for your union, your marriage, to not be able to receive it from the church. So I'm saying there's definitely a set of limitations coming to you. But I also have a set of limitations within the church. You know what I mean? There's that I'm inviting you to keep open the benefits that come to be close to anything from a moral foundation to,
100%,
you know what I mean, the peacefulness.
So
that somebody
you're saying
can
it doesn't have to be like an
experience.
all or nothing.
I think that is the problem. You know what I mean? We forget that the church is not for the person that is already saved. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things that they criticize the church for. It's almost like, listen, we're going to allow you to be bad once, right?
Whoops.
But if you're driving, you're going to get excommunicated. You're going to get... No, I mean, that's as a matter of fact, the process the process of confession is supposed to be a conversational component where it said, okay, you did do you really repent? Yes, I do. It said, can you stay away from doing it again? I'm going to do everything. And literally, it's go and sin no more. It's the actual statement made by Christ himself. It's repeated by the priest. But they know at the moment that you walk out, it's like, oh man, Alexi, I don't know if he's going to be able to stay away from porn based on... you know what I mean? Whatever, they know this. Got a hold of you. You know what I mean? And so... but there's many benefits, you know what I mean, from so just keep that in mind. You know what I mean?
And by the way, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. But I okay, so maybe not me as a person, but it's not even my family. It's just I understand that my union, my marriage, doesn't have anything to do with the church, and I don't want it to do, because then it stops being what it's supposed to be, correct, which is a guidance for morals, values, and principles. Correct. And if that's the way that they want to handle it, that's totally fine by me. Just don't impose it on me. Yeah. But I understand, and thank you for...
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that the thing about the actual... If you understand the reason why some people will remain Catholic, even a time, like right now, this is probably the time where I have disagreed with the position of the Pope more than I ever had about any of the popes, you know what I mean? And we have some rough popes in the past. You know what I mean? But is that I'm always reminded that certain things are given to us. It's almost like saying, okay, here's the set of rules, right? And then you have to decide if you can play 100% by the rules, or if you're not able to play 100%, but you still want to play. And then there would be the position of the person that says, listen, I'm not playing at all. What I'm saying is there is a place where you can still play. It's not a, all or nothing type of position.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, what I had to accept was like, okay, the church doesn't agree with these things. How do I fall? How do I see it? How do where's my space within that? So, but there's so many other additional benefits that come from being connected to it that I just don't want you to feel that there is no place for you or for anybody. I don't care whether somebody's like dealing drugs or using drugs or there is a moment where people literally have a yearning to say, I want to be close to something that makes me feel full of faith and more hopeful, and that allows me to believe that there is something good out there about life in general and about people. You know what I mean? I think about, I see it from that perspective. But anyway,